I think my take on the sort of the advancement of technology in relations to, social, turmoil, again, kind of harkens back to what actually made the civil rights movement a national movement when like Jim Crow laws and the treatment of blacks in the South could be relocated to the South. It was one of those things to where it's like it's possible to avoid it and act like it's not there. When Selma was like piped into our homes, and people saw with their own eyes on prime time, fire hoses and wild dogs being released on people, right? You can't avoid that. That humanized it immediately. So like what technology did immediately humanized something that was just a newspaper clipping. Now you can't avoid it. Now it's in your living room. And if you have any shred of decency, you need to say something. And the reality is, it's just history. When white men get upset, things change. And that's what happened. That mobilized white men. That's just our country, So it mobilized them, and Civil Rights Act was passed. You know what I'm saying? So the technology is what pushed the movement forward. Right? On one hand. In the same way we're kind of seeing it now, it's like it was the consistency back to back to back finally got those who, we consider allies, finally going, okay, I can't parse these and say that they're not connected anymore. Too many of them are happening and they're in my space now. You could choose to scrub your timeline clean of anything that has to do with color. You know what I'm saying? You could choose to do that and unfollow and as somehow or another, it's the algorithm is gonna put these stories in your timeline. It's unavoidable. Or you could close your phone, but outside right now, somebody's blocking the freeway. You understand what I'm saying? What technology did was it took it from not just your living room, but your pocket and your streets, and it made participation and your indictment in this problem unavoidable. That's on one hand. Now, on the other hand, what has been, and this is what I think people are missing, what has been documented scientifically and psychologically is that kids in our urban communities, in our poorest urban communities, are actually suffering from PTS. They actually have post-traumatic stress syndrome. They have it, but it's current. And the levels of anxiety and trauma that inner city youth are actually experiencing are sometimes at even greater levels than people that have been in active war. But the difference is RP isn't past, it's present. It's happening now. At least if you were in a war, that was overseas. You can come home to peace. We live in this, and it's not, and some of it is our own doing, which is a whole other topic of interlocking systems of injustice that caused us to actually believe that being detrimental to each other is beneficial in some way. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things that go into what made the urban community as dangerous to each other. There's a line on one of my old albums where I was like, I dodged bullets from Don Moos and Boys in Blue. That's all we knew. So it's if the Boys in Blue is a play on words, because I lived in a neighborhood where there was Crips and Bloods, but there were also police. That was the third gang. And I'm terrified of all of y'all. You understand what I'm saying? So if you live in that already in that environment, you go to a social media to escape, only to see more death of your own people. It creates trauma. It is documented PTS. And I realized recently about myself, fam, I was suffering from trauma. And I think what clicked it was the Eric Garner case. I realized recently, I haven't been the same since. And you spend so much time sort of managing people's fragility and and trying to give reason for the feelings that you have rather than actually going through your feelings. Rather than going through the process of mourning, you find yourself having to explain why it's okay for me to mourn and why what I'm mourning is an actual tragedy rather than actually mourning the tragedy. You know what I'm saying? That's a traumatic situation, only to see that tomorrow, yet another man that looked just like me was killed. So if you're an inner city kid, you have your own trauma, you have your own PTS that you're experiencing, and then finding out that even from outside sources, there's no help. This is real. So what do you do What do? You cope. And there are healthy coping mechanisms and there are unhealthy coping mechanisms. A healthy coping mechanism, educate yourself, learn. Prayer, faith, turn to Jesus, you know what I'm saying? And read, educate, find people around you, unplug, go to other places. Like, there's healthy ways to do that. There's unhealthy ways to cope. Codeine, lean, scissor, right? Gang violence, murder, you know what I'm saying? Smashing broads, you know what I'm saying? It's coping. You're trying to find some way to make sense of the world you exist in, right? And it's your responsibility to find healthy ways. We just haven't. Rage, rioting, it's coping, you know what I'm saying? So I think that technology has helped to further our causes because it's made it unavoidable, but it's also, I feel like, added to our trauma and the psyche of you're just constantly reminded that your country don't care about you. And you're just watching history repeat itself. It do a lot to your psychology. It really do.
I'm not a very selfish artist. I don't completely make music just to satisfy my fans, but I don't solely make music for myself either. I found a happy medium of understanding what people want to listen to and what I want them to hear.
You don't understand the realism and the work and the effort and the struggle and the infrastructure that goes into everything. You don't understand the pain and the struggle that makes you into the person that you are. You just want to be that person.
The religious side, the spiritual side of the community, to get back violent, and not guns or fighting, but violent and forceful. Take back with some sort of force and not say, oh, God loves you, although your kid is dead.
I took over. I was just like, well, ain't nobody gonna talk about waves and the inspiration and why better than me. So I started talking. I'm like, yo, I started creating waves. Somebody on the other end of this table starts talking. So I started speaking louder. So I started creating waves. Somebody else starts talking. So I look at my manager. I look at John. I'm like,